how are you approaching the fact that like some people may want to come to your product for one part of it? Of course, that brings up all sorts of issues, right? But what is your next focus? How are you guys balancing with a game so infused with community feedback? So if I'm understanding everything you're saying correctly, you're trying to make it as hard as possible for me to explain this game to new viewers. First of all, thank you so much for joining us. Would you like to start with a small introduction?
Sure. My name is Gennady. I am the co-founder of Moon, and I do many things, as you know, co-founders do, but primarily tech art, tech production, and help Thomas, which is the other co-founder, kind of stay on rails, I guess.
That's definitely a good thing. To start with, well, why don't we just start at the beginning? Why don't you tell us a little bit about this update and kind of y'all's thinking behind it and how it plays into the larger picture?
Sure. So I think that what we would really like to do in general with early access is to try interesting things that maybe you didn't expect that we would do with this kind of game. And this is something that we always told people, is that we think about this project, No Rest for the Wicked, not as a particular game or sort of like, here's a box, like you can put this game into that particular box and you have these inspirations from this game and these inspirations from that game. And it feels like a lot of people were trying to place this game into a particular genre, right? But what we're trying to do is create our own thing, right? We are inspired by so many different influences from so many different games. We are putting this together into this one game, and we're iterating on this with the community in early access. And one of the things we always wanted to try was a roguelite. And you could sort of build an entire game just around that, but what we want to try is this mode which gives you a lot of we call it snackable experience, right? So it's like, what if I have 5 to 10 minutes and I just want to try something really cool and I want it to feel different every time, right? I don't want to be doing maybe yet another quest or yet another bounty. I just want something that feels completely different. And we want to build on the foundation of the combat system that we built, which has this very cool tactile feel. We've added a lot of gore and brutality on top of it now, which should make just smashing these enemies, especially with all of these explosions and and boons, which we call echoes, so much more satisfying.
I just got my first ones.
Yeah, there you go. So I guess it's just an experiment in trying to build something on top of the foundation that we have, and then just seeing how this feels, right? And there's going to be a lot of discussion, I guess, with the community and also internally about when we have all of these different modes, like the new Crucible and the overworld, how do they actually connect? And how do these different systems talk to each other, right? Because it has to be one experience that is a part of the bigger whole. And I think this is where it's such a beautiful thing to have this in early access and just see what yourself and other people in the community do with this. And I mean, it's just really fun to get feedback. So I would love to hear, once you finish your first run, what do you think?
For sure. So one kind of interesting thing that kind of immediately jumps up is the idea, and I think I saw one of your designers using this word that I kind of like, the idea that No Rest is a platform where you can kind of like build in different directions. So here is kind of like a design question for you that I'm interested in hearing your perspective. The idea of a platform is that you kind of want to keep everyone centralized in your world and give them the most interesting and different things to do. As you develop the different sections, how are you approaching the fact that like some people may want to come to your product for one part of it? And how do you balance making all these different versions important and meaningful, but maybe not required? Or is the plan to make everything required?
I think it's a great question. I don't necessarily think that everything would be required, but I do think that what we would try and do is, it's like you're coming to a restaurant with a menu, right? As opposed to you come in for a particular meal.
Oh, I like
right?
that.
So when we talk about platform, it's maybe a little bit of a, for the lack of a better word, dry corporate word, like, oh, it's a platform. What does that really mean? We're trying to make a game that you could have different experiences in while tying it all together in one world, one combat system, loot, the character progression, the world progression, the town progression. The Crucible that you're playing right now will have progression as well. You will be able to level it up, just so you will be able to level up your town. So the idea is that all of these different experiences connect, and it's not that you have to do all of them, but that you can do all of them, right? And then you get that much more out of the world we've built, you get that much more out of the combat system we've built. So, think about this first step of trying this roguelite kind of mode in this game. Now think about us adding multiplayer to this, right? And being able to do these runs with your friends. And now suddenly it's like, oh, you're multiplying everything, right? So all of these modes, they're not necessarily, A or B or C. It's A multiplied by B multiplied by C, right? So that's how we see it.
More additive and cumulative.
Exactly. It's almost like they're exponentially multiplying each other, as opposed to just being, optional or A or B or C. They have to work as a, kind of this cheesy word of greater than the sum of its parts. So hopefully
applies perfectly here. Yeah.
Yeah. When all these things combine, you get this game where, where generally, let's say you would be, in sort of like this very, very complex and challenging combat system, right? So you might say, look, I'm tired of fighting these bosses. I'm tired of fighting these enemies. And I'm going to just switch this off and I'm going to play something else. Whereas what we're going for is, well, you can go and do farming in town. You can just go and collect and just, smell the roses, watch the sunset, go to sleep, do some cool stuff that is not just necessarily fighting and destroying everything. So ideally, we would want to build a game that people don't have to turn off. We'll see if we can do that, but that's the ambition.
That's wild. That's almost like the classic MMO approach, where they want you like going to bed thinking about the game, waking up thinking about the game, having that endless to-do list in the right side of your mind kind of thing. That's really cool. So one thing I definitely noticed coming in here is that you guys have removed the experience from the Crucible, which I found very interesting, because I thought originally like the idea was that you could go into the Crucible and it would move along your experience, kind of like the main storyline. Of course, that brings up all sorts of issues, right? Because then someone could like just go main the Crucible, and then when they go back to the main story, they're like super high level and they just walk, through multiple hours of storyline. Was that the thinking in removing the experience here, or how did that work?
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the main concern that the design team has. I think we're still debating this in the team, and these debates internally is something that is very cool at Moon Studios, that everybody can really express what they feel could be the best for the game. And I think early access is that ability as well for just trying things, right? So we can try maybe in the next update giving it a little bit of a different balance or a little bit of a different reward structure. I think that's something that you will see actually in a short hot patch that we will release soon, is that some people brought up that certain rewards are not working yet, so we're going to try a few things. And I think that's actually a really cool ability that we have, through early access, just trying these things, being audacious, doing things that maybe don't work right at first, but still are very, very fun and very, very addictive. And then just seeing how can you, going back to your earlier question, really tie together these different modes and make sure that they live in harmony instead of competing with each other, right? So we don't want the Crucible to basically kind of destroy overworld experience where you no longer have to go to and do the overworld anymore. We want them to be different meals at the restaurant, right? So if you feel like doing more Crucible runs and you feel like doing that, that's awesome. And the next day you feel like venturing out into the overworld and revisiting existing areas, meeting more NPCs. The other day, maybe you want to go to the town and build more projects and do some more of the metagame in town. So it's really about giving you these different. It's almost like, if you think about the video game as like a movie that is played out across a long period of time, it's about pacing, right? It's not about being one-dimensional and kind of like one note. It's having different feelings and different, approaches to what you're going to be doing every single time you sit down and play. And I think that variety is what is very difficult to achieve, because we're trying to mix all of these things where, like when we did the original trailer, we specifically added tree cutting and fishing into the trailer, and you could see how people would, and at Moon we always watch all the like all of the reactions, all of the streams, you guys, like we constantly monitor all of this stuff. We live for that. And the funny thing was, everybody watched the trailer and they were like, okay, yeah, we get it. Like, it's sort of like a top-down, maybe there's like Souls-like inspirations. Maybe the combat is more heavy, more grounded. Okay, cool. And then it's like, oh, and now you're fishing and now you're cutting down trees. Like, what is this game, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's no box for this game. And I think that's what we love. That's what we're trying to do. That's basically the innovation we're going for is trying to create a combination of these ingredients and modes that you could engage with, and also polish every one of those ingredients to the level that we always dreamt we could do when we were playing. We grew up with games like Diablo 2, right? And we were like, okay, what kind of games would we be playing if we were, 20 years later? Like, what kind of games a grown-up version of ourselves would play, if this is what we're playing today? And we never felt that game was made. And I think that's what we're trying to do, make that game.
So if I'm understanding everything you're saying correctly, you're trying to make it as hard as possible for me to explain this game to new viewers. Is that there's gonna, when you're done with this, there's gonna be no way for me to like actually tell people what this is about. Do you have 20 minutes?
We call this the confusion metric. Like, every single decision we make is like, how do we jack up the confusion? How do we make sure nobody understands this? No,
keep them on their toes. That's the Moon Studios. Always keep them guessing.
I think that's sort of another thing that we really like about early access is that, when you release a product that is, well, again, we use the dry word product. When you release a video game that is
platform.
Platform. Yeah. When you release a video game that is that complex and it's trying to, kind of combine so many different inspirations and modes of play, it's very difficult to explain it to the public. It's very difficult to, sort of educate, quote unquote, like, what is this game about? What is this game? And I think that early access and being able to do these updates gradually, one step at a time, we've built this foundation for more than 7 years now. And we're starting to release all of this content and all of these different features in a way that makes sense, in terms of the campaign and early access, but also in a way that builds up a vision, right? So when people follow this campaign, people are engaged with early access, they gradually understand these different aspects of the game, right? And we also can perfect every single individual aspect. And I think that is another, big value in doing early access, is by the time that we reach 1.0, hopefully there's a lot of you that understand what this new thing is, right? Like, what is the box? Where do I put this game? Because people, for some reason, really like boxes, right? They really want to get like, what is this game?
It makes it easy, and it lets people connect. Like, if I say 5v5 hero shooter, that instantly it sets expectations. So I feel like a lot of people, like, they hear No Rest for the Wicked and they go, okay, set my expectations for this game.
Wow, your questions are just really spot on. I think this is actually part of the growing pain that we're going through, and we were going through. I mean, the goal for Moon is not to become, like this massive organization. The goal is to have people that are extremely passionate about what they do and hire really the best people that we can, get. And that is still very tricky for us, trying to hit all of these different ambitions and do it with the basically 90-person team, which is what we currently are. So that's another reason to do early access, is to kind of figure out our growth path and how do we want to tackle this, and the ability to execute on each individual component of this game one step at a time throughout the early access campaign is another big benefit for us. And it's another very it's a very good fit for us, because we're still not able to build 5 big modules in parallel. We're still more like 2 to 3, and we're growing that ability.
A lot of times in situations like this, when you're developing something so new that can go in so many different directions, community feedback is important, but it's also really important that you guys get out the vision that you want. So how are you guys balancing with a game so infused with community feedback, the idea of giving the players what they want, but also delivering exactly what you want to give them?
Yeah, that's wow. Your questions are really, really great. Like, this is a constant discussion in the team as well. And I think there's a healthy balance to be struck. And the cool thing about this is that Moon has always been this collective of people that were very, very opinionated, right? So we always kind of built this culture where everybody can speak up. Everybody can say, like, oh, I don't like this mechanic, and this art isn't working, and this music doesn't work for me, and whatever, right? And we're kind of used to the operation by which we have key drivers of the vision that have the vision, that know what they want. And then we have a lot of passionate people giving feedback and opinions. And as you can imagine, sometimes these opinions are conflicting, and sometimes these opinions are misguided, and sometimes maybe they are lacking, bigger context, right? So certain mechanics, they might not work at first, and then you always have this big question. And I think that any creative project struggles with the same pattern that occurs, and that is when you try something and it doesn't work. Is it because the concept itself is flawed, right? So conceptually, this doesn't work, or is it because the current execution, for whatever reason, because of specific details and specific tuning of it, or whatever it is just not working. It's not clicking, right? So is it the concept or is it the execution? And I think this is where you have to really take a step back, meditate, and understand, take the new input you're taking from the community and understand the pain points, and like, okay, people say, okay, look, we don't like timers. Timers suck, right?
Yeah.
So that's one of the good examples, right? Something where there is a vision for it, which doesn't stem from something like, we will do monetization, and it's like this mobile game mechanic. We personally hate all of that stuff, and this game will not include any of those features. It's going to be, you buy this game and there'll be expansions at some point. That's it. So we're not planning to add any of that kind of stuff in the game. But the reason it exists is to build a world that feels lived in and feels like it's changing, right, when you're not playing. So it's about creating a situation where you have something to look forward to, that the rewards are in the future. So there's a bit of this delayed gratification feeling, which I think is a very powerful design concept. And I think this is a great example, and we've been debating this in the team very, very heavily recently because of the community feedback. And then the question is, well, is it conceptually that the concept of delayed gratification and concept of things taking time in the game, right, to get your reward, is it that the concept itself isn't going to work? Or is it the detail as to how we do it right now that for some reason do not connect?
How do you view your Steam reviews? Is this like is it a vocal minority situation, or is it a main source of feedback? How do you guys view it?
I think that there's definitely a little bit of that psychological thing where the minorities that are vocal always are overrepresented on the internet, right? That's definitely true. But I also think that the way we see it is that these people are passionate about what we're making, right? They spend time buying this game, playing it, and they don't like it, right, for whatever reason, or something bugs them, or they have a very strong emotion towards something. And I think that is feedback you absolutely have to look at, right? As an artist, as a creator, you cannot be, your ego cannot get in the way. You gotta be able to understand and empathize with who is going to be ultimately playing this game, right? We're making this game for other people. And that's the thing you're then reconciling with your vision and with your conviction and your confidence about certain bigger pillars and design decisions. And then you figure out the detail of how to get there. So I would say that we're confident in the vision, we're confident in the big pillars, and we're flexible in the details, and we will figure it out as we go. And we don't want to write off the feedback as saying like, oh, okay, these people are just shouting and they just, they're just like to complain or whatever. It's fair. They purchase this product, they care about it. And I think we prefer that there would be somebody that tried our game and they don't like it, then nobody would try it at all, right? So at some point you gotta, I think it's still a net positive, even though it's an uncomfortable feeling to have, because of course we come from Ori, we had like 97.
Yeah, you guys knew exactly what you wanted to give out. You did, and everyone loved it. So this is a very different experience.
Yeah, this is
what is the next Crucible? Have you guys talked about that all yet? Like, if it's too early, that's fine. If you want to focus on the Crucible, that's understandable.
People want multiplayer, and we know
yes.
that. And that is something that, of course, we've built this networking foundation for both co-op and PvP for so many years, and we honestly can't wait for people to try this game with their friends, because it's a completely different experience. And it gives you so much more, so many more hours of joy out of the same content. So we know that that's something that people want to see the most. But we also need to create more loops in the game, and we need more content to be added, because this, we want the world to be much thicker. And there's a lot of also internal work that we want to be doing to improve our ability to iterate on this game, to improve our ability to
Oh, the internal tools. Yeah.
yeah, just the tooling, the process that we have, because we are always learning, right? Like you take one step, two steps forward, and you go like, okay, well, this could be better, this could be better, this is too slow, you know, this could be a risk in the future, and you have to reconcile all of these different things into a roadmap that works, right? So it's not just about, well, what do people want, right? Or what would be the most the thing that would give us the most players to come, you know, because like you could be very short-sighted and say, you know, let's just maximize for whatever is going to make the most amount of people jump back into this game, right? But again, this is not the game we're playing. We're thinking about this in the long term. We're thinking about this in terms of what is the strategy that gets us throughout early access and come out on the other end with a product that is really, really awesome, right? Really, really polished, really, really balanced, that the vision really came through, that we've iterated on this, we know all of this stuff works. And that, I think, is our North Star, right? So I cannot tell you exactly yet what the next big thing is going to be. It's going to be, once we go through that process now of seeing how people play the Crucible, what they think about it, I think we will make those adjustments. We will make a big announcement with the updated roadmap, and there's multiple options in front of us. But it's going to be between obviously multiplayer in, you know, some shape or form. It's going to be between a big meta game update in town, you know, things like farming and other things that you can do in town, and it will be things like expanding on the world and giving you more depth and systemic replayability in the overworld. And we're kind of thinking, as for the big updates, what should come first and what should come second, and that's the process we're going through.
What is right now these days the No Rest for the Wicked elevator pitch?
Publicly, we try to do our own thing, and we try to create something that is an amalgam of things we love about other games, but we're not copying any particular product. We're not about that. So I would say that what we would want is a video game with excellent tactile mechanics, a world that is deep and grounded and that people can cry in with the stories we tell, and a combination of different mechanics and modes of play that make it into a quote-unquote platform that allows you to have really different experiences, but all under the same umbrella, all under the same game, right? So instead of switching between different games, you would go like, I'm done with Wicked, I'm going to go play something else. You would say, I'm done with this mode, I'm going to go and do something else in this game, right?
Cool.
Because it has that breadth and it has that depth in all of these different areas. And yes, I would say it's not uncommon for us to talk about scope creep internally. So I've seen some people say that in the chat, oh, it's scope creep. It's like, no, see, this is where I think if you really distill the vision, if you really look at the different inspirations, and you really are crisp on defining what the key components are, and you put it all together then into one product, then you can be very focused and you can be very streamlined in your approach. You don't have to just be everything for everybody, and that's definitely not the goal, right? It's not the goal to be everything for everybody, but it is a goal to create breadth and variety of the different experiences you can have within something that has brutal combat, beautiful world, and the loot systems and the meta progression that we have.
So before we wrap up here, is there anything you'd like to mention or anything you'd like to say to the community? Anything you'd like to talk about before we wrap here?
I mean, there's really a lot to talk about this game. We're still, trying to be spoiler free, if I may, because I could probably talk about things I would regret, spoiling.
Oh no, please feel free, spoil away. Totally okay here.
But I would just want to say that everybody that jumped in and basically tried this game and is giving us feedback, whether it's positive or negative feedback, you guys are awesome. Thank you for spending your time with this game, for being passionate about it, for letting us, develop it, make it better. learn from it, and for giving us, basically a motivation every day of, coming up to work and, making more people happy and more people satisfied, and just watching all of these reactions that we see. This is the most awesome part of being a creator, right? So just thank you guys for allowing us this opportunity, for giving us your time and your trust with this, and hopefully we keep building that game that we always wanted to make, and you guys keep telling us why it sucks, and we fix it and we make it better and better. And at some point, we're all here playing something that is unlike anything else, and we're very happy we were in this journey together. So just thank you is what I would like to say.
Well, I mean, from us, I've been doing this streaming thing for a very long time, over a decade now. And I hate to say it, but I could count the number of times on 4 hands probably where I really feel like devs are doing the whole kind of EA thing right. And really appreciate you taking the time to give your perspective on this. It sounds like, especially given your project, that you guys are approaching this in one of the best ways possible. So we really appreciate it. And I think I speak for a lot of us when I say we cannot wait to see what this is going to become. It's basically what we're doing now is we're watching a flower grow, and we know it's going to be pretty, but we just don't know what it's going to look like. And that's kind of a fun place to be, for sure. Well, thank you again from me and the community, and we will see you next time.